Hey folks, it's your pal Mike Shea from SlyFlourish.com and Twitter.com/SlyFlourish, here with another episode of Sly Flourish's Lazy DM Prep. This is a weekly show broadcast live Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, in which I go through steps from Return to the Lazy Dungeon Master while preparing for my Sunday D&D game. In this case, I am running the game Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and I'm in the final adventure, maybe even the final session of this game. We're going to find out. It's got one to two sessions remaining, and a lot is going on. This show is brought to you by the backers of Sly Flourish at Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/SlyFlourish, you too can be a backer and help support all of the infrastructure that it takes to keep the Sly Flourish website going and all the videos going and the YouTube channel and all of the different little bits and odds and ends that I need in order to keep Sly Flourish going. The fine backers at Patreon help cover all of the costs for that. So if you would like to help out, you can help out by backing me on Patreon at Sly Flourish. I'm probably going to have, so the Patreon channel, talking real quickly about the Sly Flourish Patreon channel. The Patreon channel, backers of Sly Flourish there get a monthly newsletter, which generally goes through all of the different bits of material that have come out through Sly Flourish, both on YouTube and on the web, on the blog, and top tweets and other things like that. But I have a project that I'm working on that I believe I am going to release just to the backers of Patreon, just to the backers of Sly Flourish at Patreon. So it is going to be an adventure. It's one that I've been toying with. It is called Regnum Ratus, The Rats in the Cellar. And it is a 1 to 5 D&D adventure playable with as few as one player and one DM, and as many as, one player, one DM, and 5 players. And it is a entire small, it's probably a stretch to call it a campaign arc, but it is certainly a tier 1 adventure. It's designed for like 1 to 2 hour sessions, and you level to 5th level as you complete a series of quests, helping a innkeeper with the problem he has of the rats in his cellar. And it turns out there's numerous caverns and horrors that exist in the cellars beneath. So if you're interested in this, it'll be available to backers of Patreon, or probably be just to Patreon backers. It's possible that in like a year or so, I might release it elsewhere, but right now it is going to be just for Patreon backers. So if you're a backer of Sly Flourish or Patreon, you can look forward to that probably in March. I'm actually commissioning a map for it, and I need to do a little editing and stuff like that. But the adventure is written, and I play tested it once, and so it'll be a cool little thing. Not a huge deal, not like a Ruins of the Grendleroot style thing, but certainly a nice little fun adventure. What else? I don't know. Yeah, so let's talk about game. Boy, crazy game last week, and I learned some valuable lessons that I'd like to talk about in this show that I hope we can all we can hope experience. James Intercasta says, "Which adventure are you prepping?" Hi, James. How are you? You're awesome. I was just listening to the podcast with you and Sean Merwin, not like, I don't know, an hour ago. So that was really cool. The adventure I'm prepping is, hey, Rockstar. Yeah, you can call me a Rockstar, but James is cool too. I'm kidding, of course. James is a Rockstar. So the adventure I'm preparing is Tammeraut's Fate. It is the chapter 6, I think, or chapter 7 of Ghosts of Saltmarsh, an adventure you may know something about. James Intercasso, who is here in the chat channel, actually wrote I believe the appendices, many of the material, much of the material in the appendices of Ghosts of Saltmarsh. So it's very awesome that he is here. So thank you for coming. And but I'm really homebrewing the hell out of it. I'm calling it Tammeraut's Fate, and it has, a pirate in it, but everything else is completely shredded. And I went down to the baseboards, and I'm rebuilding it completely. And I think it's going to be the final. I think the reason why I'm rebuilding it as much as I am is because it's sort of the final conclusion. So it's very driven about all of the other events that have happened in all of the other chapters of this book. And now it's kind of coalescing in one thing. So in the last session, the characters were sailing off into the Black Seas aboard the Sea Ghost. They had a strange ancient crystal tied to the front of their ship, which let them guide through the strange swirling seas, essentially taking them into a sort of bridge world, a world that exists between Earth, ORTH, whatever it is, the Greyhawk world, and the layer of the Abyss, probably the Abyss itself, but certainly the layers of the Abyss that tie to Tharizdun, Oerth, yeah, Oerth. So yeah, and you can't just sail there. You need to be guided somehow. And they had a crystal that they took from the Sahuagin, who had taken it from the Endless Nadir, and they are using the crystal to guide them through the seas. And they did so, and then as they crossed over, they were immediately attacked by the Black Death. The Black Death was a huge warlock whale that can summon powerful tentacles and smash apart ships. And at the same time, while they were busy dealing with the Black Death, they turn and look, and here comes Tammeraut, a ghost pirate ship, heading in, to smash into the side of them. And right before it hit, they cast a spell. I made a fatal mistake, not a fatal mistake, but I made a slight mistake. And the slight mistake I made was that I thought they had cast Control Water. And in fact, they had cast Wall of Water. So that has a very different effect on the ship. I thought Control Water would just destroy a ship very quickly. Maliki is here to say hello, by the way. There's Maliki right there. And she's going to try to jump on me. Don't jump on me. So I thought they could cast Control Water, and that if they had done so, they could essentially pull away like 100 meters of water and just let the ship crash into the ocean. And that was going to be really interesting. I talked about that in the last episode of this show. And turned out it was Wall of Water, which would have been pretty devastating too. It would have it certainly would have caused the brunt of the damage to the ship to not hit them as hard. So I had to sort of hand wave a lot of that. And then I had pirates from the Tammeraut came jumping across onto the ship, and then they got into a great big melee aboard the Sea Ghost, dealing with that. And so they had the great big fight there, and then comes the Black Death again, and the Black Death is now attacking them, and they got rid of the pirates, and I think they sunk the ship. They actually did use Control Water, and they sunk the Tammeraut pretty quickly, and that sent all of the undead that were aboard the Tammeraut down to the ocean floor, and then they had to fight the Black Death, and the characters made a Sahuagin. Oh, Sahuagin. I treat it like it were a suburb of Boston. Sahuagin. Yeah, a lot of people call it Sahuagin, but I believe, according to the pronunciation guide on D&D Beyond, it is Sahuagin. So, so the characters then decided, they made a decision that, okay, the Black Death is right there. It's time we fight it. And I was not ready for them to fight the Black Death. I didn't even know what the stat block of the Black Death was. I was just like randomly grabbing things. And this got to the problem. So they started to fight the Black Death. And I'm mostly using the stat block for the stat block of the Kraken. And the Kraken, you see the cattail. Cat's bothering me. So, oh, kitty. Oh, go on your perch. There you go. So, I was originally using the Kraken stat block, but the Kraken stat block is crazy powerful. It's like CR 28 or something. I'm like, I'm just going to kill him if I use this. So I was like holding it way back, and I was using its armor class, and sometimes I use DCs, but I was essentially like really making up the stats as I went. And that didn't serve particularly well. I think the players didn't care. They were happy, but I think they certainly knew. That I was fudging like crazy. And fudging is fine, but you don't want it to be noticeable. And it was noticeable that I was fudging, I think. So that was definitely a problem. And anyway, so they fought the Black Death, and eventually they killed the Black Death, and that was a big deal. Like Bless, whose her parents were killed by the Black Death, managed to slay it, and they slayed the Black Death, and that was a big thing done. So then they got to the island of the Monolith. And they went out ashore, and they saw the monolith way up on a hill, and they saw these open volcanic caverns. This is all stuff I talked about last week. And then all of a sudden they see a zombie come crawling out of the water, and then 2 more zombies come crawling out of the water, and then 10. And they're like, oh my God, all those pirates we sunk, they're all here, and they're coming ashore. We should run. And I said, like, well, you see probably 50 zombies coming up, maybe 100, fewer than 100, more than 50. Plus like their leaders and stuff. And they're like, well, you can't survive that. And I'm like, well, you might, it's possible. 50 zombies, 8th level characters. That's not so, zombies are a pain in the ass though. And they just fought a bunch of zombies aboard the ship too. And they're like, oh God, those things are pains in the ass. If we don't roll right, if they make their con saves, they'll live forever. So they decided like, oh, they saw a person that's like, hey, come over here, and he's like in this tunnel in one of the volcanic rock areas. So they go in there and they meet this crazy mage, and the crazy mage is talking about how he's discovered all this crazy old stuff here, and it's how fascinating is it? And by the way, there's really dangerous critters here. Oh, and by the way, watch out for those zombies. And the zombies start to pour into the place, and this is where I kind of made another mistake, which I didn't have a map for them. And if you're going to have a defensible position, you really want to have a map. And I'll give an example that in James Intercasso's recent Eberron adventure, Where the Dead Wait, you have to defend against a horde. Oh, there's spoilers. Spoilers for Where the Dead Wait, but it's not much of a spoiler because it happens right away. You have to defend a house and discover its mysteries while getting attacked continually by crazy undead things. And the key, so when we played that, I played that at Winter Fantasy, and I think it's important that if you're going to defend a place, you need to be able to see a place. James says, you can stay outside the house. Yeah, sure. That's my character is like, I'm not going to that crazy old house. And they're like, well, we're all going. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go to the crazy old house. So, so if you're going to have I think it's very cool to have an adventure where you defend a place. And I think players really love the idea of defending a place, but you need a map of the place. And the DM who ran Where the Dead Wait for us at Winter Fantasy had a great map, and it's one map and you put it on the table and it's used for the whole, it was used for the whole adventure. And that works really well. I had a map kinda, let's see, I'll pull it up here. I picked a Dyson map that I thought would work well, but I didn't print it out. And it also, like, I looked at it and I was making modifications to it in my head. So this is the map that I was going to use. And I like the idea that it's sort of 3D, only the area here to the right was going to go down to a water area, and the area to the left kind of went up the spire. And this map could have served well, and I could have modified it slightly just by drawing on it and sort of showing like here where windows are and stuff. And I ended up sketching it out on we have a big acrylic sheet on the table that we run at the shop, and I drew it on the acrylic sheet. So they got it, but it was like, it would have been better if I had printed this thing out so that we had a better idea. And then I could just kind of take a pen and sort of sketch in where the water is and everything like that. So, so I didn't give them a great map about how to defend it. And the way they defended it, so zombies started pouring in from various these like cracks in the obsidian walls and these weird volcanic chambers that exist. The zombies started crawling in, and they just started using shatters to seal off those areas, and that worked pretty well. And then they fought a few, and then they went down to the basement, and the wizard revealed the fact that he has an apparatus of Aqualish down there. And they're like, well, we need that. And he's like, you can take my apparatus of Aqualish. And they started poking at him, and he hit him with a cone of cold. And it turns out he's like a powerful mage. So I think they beat him down, but then captured him. They didn't kill him. And then they got the apparatus of Aqualish, and they're like, well, we're overrun by zombies up above. We have this apparatus of Aqualish. Why don't we just go down below? And they know that they're like in this underwater chamber that can lead down into the water beneath the island. And that is where we ended the game. So the lessons that I learned, I am an improv. I try to, I'm an improv focused DM. I want the game to evolve in interesting ways while I'm running it. And to be an improv DM, I think it helps to have a lot of tools that help you to think on your feet and help you to evolve the situations as things go on. And having things like, interesting maps and lists of good monsters and secrets and clues and all the stuff that we talked about in Return to Lazy Dungeon Master helps with that. But there was a couple things that were missing. And one is like, the two big ones for me is, three. So three big ones. One, I never really knew how many pirates were on the ship. I was just making it up. And I was like, I don't know, there's a bunch of pirates. And I'm like, how many come across? I'm like, I don't know, 6. So I didn't have any solidity to like how many pirates overall are on the pirate ship and how are they going to attack, right? And if I had sort of this idea, this is that idea of like building a situation. And the situation is the Tammeraut is attacking. Well, who's on the Tammeraut? Well, we know that Sea Prince Sergal is there. We know he probably has a crew for himself. And we know that he's got a bunch of zombie pirates that are there. So that's cool. But I'd never really laid it out. And I should have said, like, he's got, how many? 45? It was probably about 50, right? 50 is a good number. And that's probably about 10 sort of officer types and then 40 enlisted types, the enlisted types being zombies. And then I would have had sort of an outline of like how many are going to attack and how many sink and how many attack the boats and how many are on the bottom of the seafloor and all this other stuff. And that would have worked really well. And instead I was just like winging it. So number of monsters was something that I was winging that I could have set. Not by encounter, not to say like each encounter needs to be these perfectly defined blocks that Kobold Fight Club says is perfectly applied, but more to just understand like how many pirates are on the ship. right? Would have been a benefit. Kitty, you're a naughty kitty. You're very naughty. Cool. So the second thing was I didn't have, I don't think I used a single stat block for any of the game. I was making it up. I mean, I used the zombie stat block, but then like when I had the sort of drowned assassins, I was like, I don't really like the drowned assassins the way they are. I'm going to do my own drowned assassins in my head. And then I was like changing the stats as I'm going, not just like twisting hit points and stuff like that, but like really altering. Let's see. Isn't there a, I thought there was a, yeah, here we go. So like the drowned assassin was a monster that I wanted to do. Yeah, and I probably could have used it as is, and I probably should have used it as is. But I was like, oh, I kind of want to have it, you know, I want it to be different. And I should have just used it as is, but I didn't really. So I kind of used these stat blocks, these drowned guys I used, like the drowned ascetics. I don't even know what that means. And they got blue rot, drowned blades. I definitely used like the drowned blades with the rusting longsword attacks. I didn't use the drowned master, but that makes perfect sense for Sea Prince Sergal. And I guess that's it. So like these guys, I could have used them as is, but I was like modifying them on the fly, and that was a mistake. I should have just used the stat blocks as is, or at least use the stat blocks that are here, and then I could ignore things. I could ignore blue rot if I wanted to, or I could just slightly tweak it. But the other one is I didn't have a stat block for the Black Death. And if I hadn't been such an idiot, I would have used the Juvenile Kraken. Hey, look, it's right here. The Juvenile Kraken is a good stat block. You could use it as a Warlock Whale pretty well. It still has lightning blasts. It can still make tentacle attacks. The lightning blasts are more reasonable, you know, DCs and damage. The tentacle attacks could be ethereal tentacle attacks, and they do a fair bit of damage, but they're not, plus 12 to hit is not like the plus 19 to hit of a regular Kraken. And the hit points are about right. So this would have made, I should have just used this guy as my, I should have used this guy as my Warlock Whale. But instead, for some reason, I was like, I'm not going to use this guy. I'm going to use the regular Kraken. And that was a big dumb mistake. I should have just used the Juvenile Kraken. So when improvising, like what I kind of figured out, so that was two things. Number of monsters was one. Like, and I was just improvising the number of monsters, and I wish I had sort of defined ahead of time how many monsters were really there so that it felt solid. Not improvising the stat blocks quite as much, right? At least having some general idea. It's fine to reskin, but I wasn't even reskinning. I was just making things up completely. And then the third was not having that map, not having a solid map of the defensible position so that the characters knew where they were going. And I drew it, but it would have been better if I had just printed out the map that I showed. Where is it? Here. So, yeah, and so any one of those things probably would have been fine. Like you can improvise, I can improvise. I can't speak for everybody, but I know that I can improvise a lot. You know, if I have certain things that are solid, I know what the map is like. And this is the thing with published adventures. Like if I have a published adventure, I have maps. I know what the maps are like. I have the NPCs. I know what they're like. And then I can sort of shake things up a little bit and decide how things are going to go. But when I'm sort of homebrewing the whole thing, if I'm improvising all of it, I really feel like Indiana Jones with the whip hanging off the back of the truck while the truck was roaring down the road. I really feel like I'm barely hanging on, and I'm one step from just grabbing my hair and running out the door. So to me, it felt like I improvised too many things simultaneously. And if I'd had a good understanding of the situation and the solidity and the numbers of the monsters, used monster stat blocks, and had a good solid map, I could improvise everything else. And having all of those things certainly doesn't hinder improvisation. And if I had skipped any one of those, it'd have been fine. Skipping all of them meant like I'm literally just saying things, right? Like I don't have any books in front of me. I'm rolling dice occasionally, but boy, all the hit points, all the defenses, all the everything is just in my head, and that was too much, right? So yeah, so that was something that I learned from this last session. I queried the players, and the players responded to some of my tweets, and they're like, hey man, it was awesome. Like, we don't care. It was great. And I think, yeah, it was probably fine. But I know that like a couple of people, none of the group are like super mechanic heavy tactical focus guys who think it's BS if you change hit points on a monster. They're all pretty flexible, but I could tell that like a couple of them knew, because they're DMs too, right? So it's when DMs are watching other DMs run, you can't help but think like, I wonder what they're doing with this. And I know that they were like, yeah, he's just making this up. Like he's making all of it up, you know, and that I think hurts the immersion. It's like, why am I rolling a die, you know, when the AC is this fluid number? And I don't think AC was fluid, but it might have been. Like, I think the AC was relatively consistent. So, yes, that was a trick. I need a drink real quick. Dry in my basement. So, yeah, so that's where it ended. They have the apparatus of Qualish. They're in the volcanic island, and they have to choose where they're going to go. So let us go into today's game. So all the way back at the top. These are my current notes for today's game. So this is Tammeraut's Fate Part 3. And we have the characters. This is important because things might really end up. Mac, Goliath, Grave Cleric, Smuggler from the jungles of Monmerg, Worshipper of Weejas, worked for Kreb Schenker, and he served on the Lady's Grace, and he was in the pirate group that was run by Sea Prince Sergal. Bless, Sunspire, Human Paladin of Proken, slew the Black Death, killer of the Black Death. She avenged her parents' death due to this powerful whale. She has a blade in her hand called the Sunspire, and the Sunspire, when she killed the Black Death, said, "That's good, that's one, and we've got more work to do." And she's like, "I thought I was done," and the sword's like, "You are not done. We're just getting started." So that's a little sinister. The blade is this lawful good. We're gonna fight everything on every evil. Skylar, Aarakocra Storm Cleric, knows Wergar, Brine Hands. Head got ripped off by a Vargul, but he got better. Corvel, a human fighter. So I have an interesting thing with Corvel. This is really kind of fun. So Corvel was a fisher who got knocked in the head and started proselytizing Zagig. And he now is the wielder of Thorzadun, an ore that is wrapped up in strange metal that has come from the realm of Tharizdun. It's sort of wrapped in the chains of Tharizdun. And so he may be called as a champion of Tharizdun. The other thing is he is the only one, I thought of this today, he's the only one that can see the chains of Tharizdun as they are. So, yeah, head got ripped off by a Vargul, but he got better. That's a resume builder. That was one of my favorite scenes in this campaign. So, yeah, because he got knocked in the head, every time I roll a madness check, he rolls like a 26. He rolls these crazy high resistances against madness checks. He just can't go mad because he already is mad. So I think the idea, and I'll get into it, is that like when it comes to the realm of Tharizdun, sorry people, Tharizdun. When it comes to the realm of Tharizdun and the chains that are binding the two worlds together and the weird things that he's the only one that can see them as they actually are, right? He sees them correctly, where everybody else is, their minds are building metaphors around it. Their minds can't hold it in place, so they're building metaphors. And I think that that's an important, in fact, let's stick that as a secret, right? Mortal minds cannot grasp the artifacts of Tharizdun except Corvel. Except Corvels. Mortal minds build metaphors. Visual metaphors to not go completely batshit. Yeah, so I think that's kind of cool. So that is Corvel. We have Dave, the Triton monk and fisher. Sister was a worshiper of the chained god, but also got better, and now is a Procan, a priestess of Procan. And we have Thurvin Pat, a half sea elf storm sorcerer who served on the same pirate ship as Mac, saved Mac's life. And yeah, so that's where they are. So the strong start is the volcanic caves are surrounded. Are surrounded by the pirates. The monolith is an anchor. Must be broken to break this side of the chain. So the idea is that there's an island sitting right above the Endless Nadir, and there's a monolith on that island, a 50-foot high obsidian monolith that's been there for more than 1 million years. And it is the anchor of the chain that is connecting the realm of Tharizdun to the world. It is the anchor on this side, and both anchors need to be broken to break the chain and disconnect the worlds. And there is a sister monolith on the other side of Tharizdun's portal that also must be broken. That's going to be pretty cool. All right. And those are the 2 goals. So I think the strong start will be that Sergal speaks. Let's see. And the secret and clue is the monolith. 2 monoliths must be broken to break the chain and seal the rift. Do I have an idea how it can be broken? I think that between Bless's Sunspire Blade and Corvel's Ore, those are 2 pseudo artifacts that can probably break the monoliths. Like, they can't be broken by normal weapons, but those things, one of them is this super holy blade that's sort of the exact antithesis of Tharizdun. And the other one is made from the metal from his world. So it makes sense that either of those, in fact, either the Sunspire or Tharizdun. Either the Sunspire or Tharizdun can break the monoliths. I think those are probably the only 2 things that can. I don't think anybody else has anything that really makes sense. Yeah, so that nice solid quest there. And I think the quest is going to be made clear to them. And that's really the start. Sergal is going to tell him this, right? Sergal speaks. You cannot break the chain from in there. Join us out here. Serve the chained god. And he's probably going to call out to Mac, right? So Mac, come serve the chained god again. He's been serving him all that time. So that's a pretty solid, strong start, I think. And the characters can decide, are they going to fight the pirates outside, or are they going to take the apparatus Aqualish and head down below? So scene-wise, we have Sergal speaks, and then we have sort of a forking path. And the forking path could be fight pirates, or head to the Endless Nadir. So those are really the 2 paths. It could be tricky if they end up going down to the rift. So they might go down to the rift and explore a little bit and then come back up again. Right? I guess that's fine. Right? The situation is, so I think about it from a pacing and a scene perspective, and it's like, what if they deal with the other monolith first? So it's possible, an option, and this is where we talk about like moving MacGuffins. Like I wrote an article about this. Like Money Cook talked about this in Numenera, that the idea of keys. So there's Explorer's Keys, I think was the name of a book that he wrote. And it's adventures where the keys can change. The DM can decide where the keys go. And I did this in Ruins of the Grendleroot as well, that there are certain adventures where the key thing that you need doesn't always have to be in the same place. And you as a DM can decide to bring it forward. Tomb of Annihilation did this too with the skeleton keys. The skeleton keys can be wherever you want them to be. So, it could be in the very next room, or it could be in the furthest room away. How long do you want the adventure to go on will matter towards where you put those keys. The same is true with this. Maybe they have to destroy that monolith up above, and maybe they don't. Right? What if they destroy the other one? What if only one of the monoliths needs to be broken? Or what if the only monolith that has to be broken is the one below, and the one above will crumble if the one down there is destroyed? So I could almost make that not true. So, yeah, so it's possible to change it, because you think about the pace of the game, and it's like if they go down into the Endless Nadir and they fight a bunch of horrors down there, and then they decide somebody's going, either we're all going down the rift or only one of us is going down to the rift. And then if they, you know, depending on what they decide to do there, they could, you know, they could destroy the rift. Like, it might be very interesting if we think about how the scene might go. What if Bless says, I'm going alone? Like, I'm going in, whoever goes in there's not coming back out. And I'm going down there by myself, right? And the rest of the group is like, okay. And she dives into the rift and disappears. And then the chain breaks on this side, right? And the chain breaks on the other side. She succeeded. She broke the monolith, but she doesn't come back out. And they're like, wow, she's gone. But she broke the other side. And we got to go back up and destroy the other one. And they destroy the other one. And they do so. It shatters the chain. And the connection is broken, but Bless is gone. That could be a path they take. Another path could be they go fight the pirates outside. They break the monolith here. Then they go down there. They all go into the portal. And then I do like what does it look like in Tharizdun's realm? So that could be an option too. So there's a lot of different ways. But the situation is, you know, we're at the junction between two worlds. There's a portal between the worlds. There's an abolithic city sitting between there. There's the monolith above, the monolith below. I could draw a really cool diagram of this. You know, that'd be kind of a fun diagram, right? You sort of flip it upside down and you got this whole other island and you have the realm of Tharizdun on the other side. You can almost imagine it, right? Like two monoliths, one facing down, one facing up, island, and then another island, and then the Endless Nadir, which is Abolithic City on this side. There's probably some twisted version of the Abolithic City on the other side, or some crazy world. And then they go up to the all water, and it's this crazy swirling stormy sky, and all these weird like geometric obelisk shapes floating in the air, and there's the monolith. And then in the distance, they can see Tharizdun himself trapped and chained with a big iron mask of weird metal that was made by angels, you know, at the dawn of time. And he's struggling, and there's a crack in the mask, and one eye can kind of peer out. And that's how he's been spreading his influence. So these are all good secrets. We should hammer these out as secrets. So what secrets do we have? Let's see, the gods bound Tharizdun at the beginning of time. They bound him in a metal mask and chains. The mask has cracked. Cultists of Tharizdun after hundreds of thousands of years. I can't spell. Have cracked the mask. Tharizdun's power has leaked from this crack. Tharizdun is the elder elemental eye force behind the cults and plain Prince of the Apocalypse. Yes. Yeah. Tharizdun's power has leaked from this crack, which opened the rift. So we have that. There is a sister monolith. Tharizdun's power has created abominations who serve him. Let's see. Tharizdun's power has created. How many more I got? Just a couple more secrets. What other secrets do we have? When the chains are broken, only seconds. The rift will only be open for seconds. So it's going to close quickly. What other? Oh, there's a villain. So let's take a quick look before I finish this secret up. There was, of those Far Realm guys, the Star Spawn. This is a Seer. One of these was really badass. So the Seer's not bad. So Seer is a worshiper, leader of a cult that worships one of the elder evils. So the Seer is a, yeah. I'm trying to think of like the, you know, I guess there's only these. There's the Hulk, the Larva Mage, the Mangler, the Seer, and the Gru. The Mangler is the one, that the one with all the arms? Yeah, so that one has crazy claw attacks. Those are cool. The Hulk are these big giant monstrosities that punch like a freight train. These are the guys that if you stack two of them together, they turn into like 2 bricks of uranium. And the Larva Mage, I think, is a legendary creature, a CR16 legendary creature. The Larva Mage might be a fun boss, but I think the Larva Mage is, so it was once immortal. When a powerful cultist of a worm-like entity. So this really isn't, this doesn't fit Tharizdun quite as much. But boy, is it powerful. So what if we, instead of worms, we have chains, right? We're going to reskin the Larva Mage as a chain mage. And it's a villain. I kind of think of like the Mouth of Sauron, you know? It's sort of an embodiment of Tharizdun that they can face. So I think we're going to have there is a chain mage servant of Tharizdun in the world. So it's kind of like the leader of Tharizdun's forces here in the world. It's even barely conscious of what's going on. And that'll make kind of a fun, powerful boss. Let's take a quick look. So it's got spell casting. It can cast cantrips as a legendary. And has Eldritch Blast. 3-beam Eldritch Blast. Wow. That's pretty powerful as a cantrip. Feed, and it has this feed. Creatures 20 feet, a Larva Mage gains a saving throw against 10. Wow. Fail a saving throw against 10 temporary hit points. Each creature restrained by the Larva Mage's Plague of Worms takes 13 necrotic damage. So one of the things I think about with this, so some homework that I did for this is the movie Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2. If you are not familiar with Clive Barker's Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2, they're kind of schlocky, but pretty classic horror movies from the 80s. And most of it is pretty terrible and super gross. But a lot of it involves the Leviathan and the world of hell and these guys called Cenobites, Pinhead being one of the Cenobites, who are these like hell creatures that have been around forever that just like to torture people for fun. And I kind of think that fits the whole Tharizdun idea. Return to worms. Let's see. Plague of Worms. Each creature other than a star spawn within 10 feet of Larva Mage takes 19 seconds, take 22 necrotic damage and be blinded. Binded and restrained by the masses of swarming worms. The affected creature takes 22 necrotic damage to start at each turn. The Larva Mage's turn. The creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a success. I like that, but I'm going to extend it out. Native DM says, I just watched both of those before starting my Avernus campaign. I don't know how well it fits Avernus, right? Like, because there's no crazy vehicles. I think the obvious homework for Avernus is Mad Max Fury Road. But yeah, so I don't know. Hellraiser's kind of funny and gross, but I think it's a good one. So I think that there is a Starspawn Larva Mage, and we'll stick that down in my monsters. And it's a chained mage, right? And I think the fun bit is they'll face a chained mage here in the world. We'll get to that in a second. I don't know how to do that. And then they'll go to the other world and they'll look in the sky and they'll see dozens of chained mages Like the whole, they're all sort of floating out over the black boiling sea, and their chains are floating out behind them, and they all have that same sort of weird iron mask with spikes that go right into their eyes, and the chain, and they're like, oh my god, there's like a dozen of those things, and they're badass, they're gonna shred us, so they have to like quickly destroy the other monolith, right? I think that'll be fun. So we have Grus, Hulks, Manglers, and Chained Mages. What was the other? The Seer? What's a Seer like? So Seers are cultists as well. They're pretty cool. I'm thinking that, sorry, I'm sitting here dead space thinking about Seer. I'm thinking about the strong start, and what if the mage that's down there turns into a Seer, and they have to deal with that Seer? That might be kind of a fun, a fun start to it. And then, like the weird creatures start crawling in the holes, and it can, it'd be pretty powerful. So I think I might do that. So the mage, Guru's attack. It might be kind of fun, right? I mean, it's power 153 hit points, but we'll see. I'll tweak those hit points up. Not going to make the mistake I made last time. But the idea that like it can bend space, so when somebody tries to crush him, he just immediately replaces himself with a Gru, and they smash the Gru, and then he's like floating up above them, dropping psychic orbs. Let's see. Collapse as Seer warp space around a creature sees within 30 feet. Creature with DC 19 wisdom save, failed saving target. Carrying magically teleported 60 feet to unoccupied space, and all other creatures at 10 feet original save take 39 psychic damage. Wow. Collapse distance. That's pretty great. So this could be a badass fight. 2 Comet Staff attacks or Psychic Orb twice. Wow, and the Psychic Orbs are rough. Oh. I don't know. Is that too much? I don't know if that's too much. If I do that, then it's definitely going to go 2 sessions, which might be okay. I don't know. What do you guys think? Should I go with a fight in the beginning where they fight where the mage turns into a star spawn Seer and starts beating the crap out of them, and they have to kill the Seer, and then at the same time, like they have to deal with the pirates outside in the caves, or should I skip that and kind of get further along and skip the Seer battle and get further along in the story? I'm tempted to yeah, I think I'm going to do that. And I'll tell you what. And so then when we'll look down at like what else. So Sergal speaks, star spawn attack. Yeah, maybe fight pirates, then they head down to the Industidir. And then maybe they don't have to destroy the monolith up above. Like maybe that doesn't become a problem. I don't know. So I got my secrets, I got my scenes. NPCs, I'm not going to worry about. There is like I have a couple of pirates that worked for Sergal. And I have Inigo, the aboleth that, and the aboleth can sort of share secrets. There's an aboleth that's still floating around the Endless Nadir, kind of watching the rift. Here's the other cat. What are you doing? What is this? You gonna do some Twitch streaming, kitty? Come here, naughty cat. Oh, the other cat's in the thing. Bye-bye. So, Yeah, so that could be interesting. But then we have locations. So let's talk about the locations. So I've got the caves. I know that I have an abolithic ruin, right? The ziggurat, the Pillar of Knowledge, the Altar of Tharsdoon, the Rift itself, the ruins of the Sea Elf City, wreckage of the Tammeraut. That's all in the Endless Nadir. And then we have the other side. And we have what is going on over there. We have black acidic seas. We have a bone island, like an island that's all like white instead of the black volcanic island of here. It's all white as though it's made of bone. The second monolith. And this is where Tharsdoon is, right? So let's see. Rift in the chain. Chain has to be kind of both sides. We talked about that last time. We're just going to do zombies. I don't know. Skeletons work pretty well for those too. The zombies are such pains in the asses to kill. People can get, like, we had, level 8 fighter with all of his attacks fought the same zombie like 3 rounds. And it's because the zombie made every saving throw against the attack. It turns out, like, doesn't matter how much damage you're doing if the zombie's rolling like a 26 saving throw every time. So the trick is, so like when I imagine it, so they take the apparatus of Qualish down below, and there's all of these like star spawn grooves and all these star spawn creatures, and they see the rift. Wouldn't they just immediately go right through the rift? And if they did, what would stop them? I guess they still have to destroy a monolith on one side or the other. And if they get to the island of bone, right, floating out of the acidic Black Seas, and there's a strange, the other part is there's all these weird like geodes, these perfectly formed, right angle geodes floating in the sky, upside down pyramids and diamond shaped things that are floating in the sky, these huge remnants of creation. I don't know. I fired up Siri somehow. So I guess if they went right through the like what I guess the question that I've got in my mind is, could they not just go right through the rift? Like they go down below. They don't have to face anything down there. I think it would be interesting if they had to fight. I guess they could fight a bunch of swimming star spawn guys, right? Including the first Larva Mage, the star spawn chain mage, is down there. So that could be pretty interesting. Or do they head straight to the rift? So what do they see down there? I think it would be, I guess it's convoluted for me to say like, well, there's this giant pyramid that's actually built up above the rift, and you have to go into the pyramid and go through your 3 to 5 rooms before you get to the rift itself. And that way you have to fight X number of battles. That's pretty convoluted. So instead, I think they go down there and they see the ruins of the Abolithic city, and they see these pillars, and they see this cracked ziggurat, and they see this altar, and they see upon the altar is this chained thing, who will probably pull them closer, right, to shred them before they can get down into the rift. And then they'll have to beat that before they can go down in the rift. So I think that'll work. All right, the altar is probably going to be where the big battle will take place, and the altar is where the chained mage will be, and that will be sort of their boss fight. Probably the big boss fight for the whole adventure will take place there, and that'll be like the chained mage and maybe a couple of hulks. Like hulks are pretty awful, aren't they? Talk about like breaking your challenge ratings. Hulk. The star spawn hulks are CR10. But like 136 hit points is not that much. And let's see, their target takes 9 psychic damage, succeed DC 7 to be stunned. The stun is terrible, but I'll probably just do a, you can take a bunch of damage to break the stun. So I think that can work. That can work out. They'll be able to beat that. But like, you know, oh, for funsies, let's go to, I'm going to go to Kobold Club. I have 5 level 8 characters. And I am going to add a, they don't have star spawns in here. That's a bummer. Okay. Let's go to encounters. Lots of resistances though. Do they really? Not really. Non-magical attacks, but boy, everybody in my group has magical attacks, so they're not really gonna. And the psychic damage, but they're not going to be taking psychic damage unless it's to themselves. And I think the, no, I think it'll be fine. I don't think I'm going to have to up the hit points. I think having 2 Hulks with 136 hit points plus the mage, it's going to be pretty. That's going to be pretty powerful. And but I think I'm going way over. And I'm just for fun. I'm going to do this. So create new. We have 5 managed characters, 5 level 8 characters. 5 level 8, and we are going to have 2 Hulks. Oh, look, we're already past Deadly, and the Larva Mage. So Deadly is 10,500 experience points, and I am doing 53,600 experience points. Is that adjusted correctly? Yeah, that's the multiplier, right? So a deadly a deadly fight would be 10,500, and I'm going to be doing 53,600. But I tell you, I bet they do it. I mean, this just tells you like how goofy and counterbalance is, and I mean, well, so what's the, you know, okay, so there's a couple factors. If we do the Sly Flourish rapid head-based encounter building system, what have we got? So we have 2 CR. So yeah, are we deadly? We already know we're deadly. I don't need to do the math, but I think the total is 35 CR, combined CR. And when I have 8 times 5 is 40. So they should be 20. So in my version of it, 2 Hulks is just on the edge of deadly, and I'm going way above that. Fantasy Grounds College says CR levels are subjective. CR levels don't account for it. Yes, I know that. Yeah, that CR doesn't really work. And in this case, I know these 5 characters, and it's gonna be hard. Like it's gonna be tough. And I'll bet you there are things about the Larva Mage, that I'm like, you know, oh, I mean, because if it's got Circle of Death and then you have Hulks beating you up, that's bad. That's a bad day. All right, Circle of Death is really rough. What is it? 8d6 necrotic for everything in a 60-foot radius. Yeah. We're gonna reskin that into crazy psychic chain stuff. Yeah. Resist cold, blood piercing, slashing, immunity to psychic, can't be charmed, frightened, paralyzed, petrified. So it's not immune to stun, but it does have Does it have legendary resistance? It does not have legendary resistance. I am giving it legendary resistance because it'll get stun locked by the freaking monk otherwise, and that would suck. That's what I mean. Like, you know, this CR16 creature. And we have a monk who loves to swim 9,900 feet and then goes stunning strike, stunning strike, stunning strike, stunning strike, and hits 4 times with 4 stunning strikes in a row. That thing would definitely get stunned. And then they'd go over and they'd kill it, you know, in 1 round, probably. So that idea that this guy is CR16 is pretty ridiculous. So that's one thing about Mordenkainen monsters that I've noticed is Mordenkainen monsters are typically weaker than their CR allows for. I don't know that there's a good math equation, but I bet you could drop, you know, the CR a couple of notches at least. and they would still stand. So the monsters are fine, but the challenge ratings are borked, and you really got to just say, yeah, it'll be fine. And I'm still giving this thing. I'm still giving this thing legendary resistances. I can't believe it doesn't have legendary. It has legendary actions, but no resistances. Yeah, that's crazy. I suppose a monk that gets within its area is going to get beat up quite a bit. So, yeah, so thinking about what happened last time, let's think this time about what's going on. So that first situation, we're going to have, so Grews are low CR. We don't have to worry. So how many Grews get pulled in? Like 6 or 10? The Seer plus 10 Grews. Right, I really think Grews were not, Grews are low challenge rating. They're just twisted monstrosities, yeah. Yeah, so, are 10 Grews? We'll do 6 Grews. So 6 Grews. 6 Grews attack. Does it give the encounter, or can you add the swarm to the final encounter for convenience? I'm not sure I understand. Let's see. Get someone to draw the Hulks, have ranged weapons hit the mage. Yeah. So we have that. Then I think the on the altar is going to be Hulks and the Star Spawn. We'll see what they do about the pirates, and then we'll see where they go. So yeah, I'm gonna use so my goal today is we're gonna use, like, when I think about how things got hosed last time. A, I'm gonna use real stat blocks. B, I know how many monsters there actually are. Yeah, I think that the other monolith will be protected by manglers, and I might, I think when we have the 2 Hulks, that's gonna be enough. But there could be manglers swimming about too, Grews and manglers that are swimming around. So I can always throw some Grews and manglers at the characters if I want. There's probably a bunch of those guys swimming around the Endless Nadir. And that's kind of all the Starspawn guys. The Starspawn collapses into a swarm of insects. I assume they mean an actual swarm of insects. I'm not going to do that though. I'm just going to ignore it because mine is a chained version, and it doesn't make sense to have a swarm of chains. So I think it's just going to, get torn apart. Maybe torn apart by its own chains. And maybe it'll do some, ripping barbed chains will whip out and flick away bits of skin like in Hellraiser. So how do I feel about this? Pretty good. Sure. Yeah, why not? Right? Yeah, we'll see how it goes. And when they end it today, I don't know. So we're gonna find out. Yeah. So 1 minute left. Is there any other interesting topics? I've thought a lot. Let me drop in the end of the show. I'll drop a thought, and it's one that I am writing an article about, and I posted a tweet about it. It occurred to me. This is kind of obvious, but also I think it's interesting, which is it occurs to me how important it is to be able to think quickly on your feet to run a good D&D game, and that's a hard lift, right? This is it's a hard lift of D&D to be able to, sit around a table and as things are going on and as the dice are rolling and as things are changing, that you're able to kind of shift and move with this quickly and in fun and interesting ways. That is a skill that takes time to cultivate. It probably helps if you have a personality type that can do that well, and it has sort of the confidence of speaking in front of people and all of that. And it's really tough. It's a tough lift. And I was talking to somebody the other day who mentioned that her son plays D&D, and she said, yeah, and her nephew DMs because she said, well, my son's really kind of the quiet guy. He's a quiet kid, and he's kind of the follower, so he won't really be a DM, but he certainly loves it when his cousin plays. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. you know, we know that there are far more people interested in playing D&D than willing to run D&D, and that's been a problem forever. And I think it's because like it takes a certain kind of person who's willing to stand up and actually run games. And but I think part of what is scary is that idea of like you have to be able to improvise quickly, and that's really hard to do. And it occurs to me like I feel like I'm probably pretty decent at it. Like I'll safely throw myself in the middle of the curve of good DMs who can do this. And you know, and it takes work to do it, right? I've certainly had scenes where I've come up with an idea and I loved it, and like the players thought it was funny, and it was like, you know, the thing I heard I was on a panel at PAX Unplugged, and one of the members of the panel talked about the idea of getting knives from the players, like getting handed knives, right? And the idea is like the players will say something and it kind of works against them, and you grab it and then just take this knife from them and stab them with it. And it's like a player will kind of say something off the cuff and then you grab it and run with it. And sometimes it's always like you're not screwing the player, there's not screwing the character. It's just you're putting them in a tougher situation that they then have to get out of, and they know it. Like it's not about dice rolling, and it's not about character sheet mechanics or anything like that. It's just about like, you know, and it's that idea in Dungeon World of hard moves and soft moves, right? A soft move is this slight shift in a certain direction. A hard move means you're really put in a tough spot, and you have to be able to improvise those. And the improvising of those is really, really hard. So I posted a tweet about it saying like, for those, you know, for people who feel like they're doing this kind of stuff, you know, what are some good ways to sort of limber up our brains so that when we are running games like this, we can think quickly on our feet? And I got a lot of really good replies, and I'm going to put together an article. And many of them are things that we've talked about before, and a lot of them I threw into Return to the Lazy Dungeon Master. Fill your mind with fiction, really study the realm that you're in, you know, get an understanding for what's going on. You know, like I said, like here I am watching Hellraiser, right? I'm like, oh, I'll just watch Hellraiser just to get my head in the game. And so filling your minds with fiction, the right kind of fiction that supports what you're doing. A lot of people talk about random tables, having random names in front of them. I think it's really important to have the right random stuff in front of you, that you don't want, you know, too much randomness and you're just going through table after table after table. The right amount of it means you can quickly scan and go, oh, I'm going to do one of those. That's why we have like the random monuments and traps and relics and things like that. Those are quick ways to be able to come up with stuff. I think names are really an important thing to have on a list. But then there's a lot of like situations, like those hard moves, those soft moves of like, you know, how do you know, the characters do something. How do you respond? And that's why having enough of a solid world in your head that you know how the world will react when they do things. That's why the idea of like taking a character from popular fiction and making that an NPC. It's like if you have Al Swearingen from Deadwood in your head and he's the guy running the bar, we'll flip genders and now it's a she. And so you have this woman who's running the bar and she's this hard-nosed, half criminal, running a bunch of stuff on the side, but also like, you know, super smart. Then any situation that you deal with her, you know how she's going to act because you know how Al Swearingen acted. Right. So that kind of stuff is really helpful. So I think I'm going to write an article about that, but it's something that I thought about, that like it was a survey I did on like, what are the best traits of top DMs? Let's see. Top traits, top DMs, top traits of good dungeon masters: flexible and adaptable, creative and improvisational, which are really the same thing, right? These three things are really the same thing. And it's that, you know, that important of being able to sort of grab onto what's going on and move with the way the story is going and do so quickly and in a fun and interesting way. You know, that's hard. And it's so critical to this game. I think it's more critical by far than rules knowledge. I bet you that DMs who do it well, when we talk about like Baldman Games scoring, I bet they do really well at it. You see it, like you know, I've seen it across tables. I've seen it where like you're watching sort of a bunch of people and you see the DMs who are kind of staring at their books and they're moving their miniatures and they're doing stuff. And then you see the guy who's standing up and he's waving his arms and the whole table's like, you know, sitting back looking at the guy. Right. So yeah, it's really pretty interesting. Anyway, that's a big thought that I've had, and it's something that I'm going to spend more time on and pay more attention to. Because I think it is so important, and it'll be really great to sort of articulate the best tricks that people have found to be useful to
keep our minds limber so that when the game is shifting while we're watching, we're really good at it. So anyway, it is past time. I want to thank everybody for coming today. For those of you that support Sly Flourish on Patreon, thank you very much. If you like the show and you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on Twitch, please subscribe to me on Twitch. And have a great week, and I will see you next weekend. Have some fun and get out there and play some D&D. Have a great day.